Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Transcend Your Trauma with Dr. Rose podcast. I am here with my wonderful, wonderful guest. I'm so honored to have you here, Dr. Eddie Connor. Before we get started, because I want to dive right into it, because this fella here is full of gems, and I know you are going to be transcended with this story, but I have to tell you some things about him. We will be here the entire podcast if I read off all his accolades. So we're just going to start. First of all, he's an empowerment speaker. He's a college professor, radio, TV correspondent, and visionary of the Access Identity Conference. We're going to talk about that before we finish up this podcast. But Dr. Eddie is also the best-selling author of 16 books.
Yeah.
Like, I'm trying to finish my third, and it's like taking me forever, right? 16 books, including the New York Times best-selling book, Reach, 40 Black Men Speaking on Living, Leading, and Succeeding, in which he shares his story. Dr. Eddie you have spoken for the NBA.
Yeah.
He's been featured on ABC, BET, CBS, Ebony, Fox, Jet, Lifetime, NBC, The Steve Harvey Show. I remember that show. That was a good show. Tom Joyner Show, Huffington Post. We can go on and on. But he's the recipient, and I didn't know this when I was reading your bio, of the President Barack Obama Volunteer Service Award and the President Barack Obama Lifetime Achievement Award from the White House. Did you actually go to the White House for that?
Yeah.
Oh my
God,
that's so exciting.
That was fun.
He's recognized as one of the top 35 millennial influencers in America, listed in the top 100 leaders in Who's Who in Black Detroit, and named to Michigan Chronicles top 40 under 40. Now, these, like I said earlier, these are this is the resume of someone 2-3 times your age. So, and I didn't even read it all off. You guys can go to his website. We'll get all that information at the end to read more about that. But welcome to the Transcend Your Trauma podcast.
What an honor it is. What an honor it is.
It's my honor. So I've been following you for years, but had the honor of being on a panel together recently, which I found even more about your story.
Mm-hmm.
As a young teen.
Yeah.
As a young teen, you were actually diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. Tell us about that.
Well, I have to first say, what an honor it is to be on your show. Your first name is indicative of who it is that you are and what it is that you do, as you really inspire people to bloom where they've been planted.
So can we talk about transcending first names real quick? Since I have to share that. Since you went there, I have to share
Absolutely.
that. I hated my name growing up.
What?
Let me.
Wow.
How many roses did you know that was not 80 years old, right?
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Named after my grandmother. But this is a story I always tell people in elementary school, second grade, when we're learning syllables, So, Eddie,
Right.
all the Shalanta, all these names and then they come to me and I say, Rose.
One clap.
I felt so just minimized by it all.
Now you get all the claps.
All the claps, I love it. But I realize, like they say, the power in the name. I love the book, The Prayer of Jabez, which talks about just the meaning and how even before we even realize it, there's so much power in the name. So I received that from you, and I thank you for pointing that out.
Oh, absolutely.
So, thank you so much. But enough about me and my traumas.
No.
Tell us about, because that story was so fascinating to me. I didn't, I followed you, but really didn't know the story in depth as you shared it there.
Yeah, I was in a precarious place and position in my life, and when you think about cancer, every second in America, 2-3 people diagnosed with cancer, 1 in every 1,000 teenagers.
Wow.
And at the age of 15, when I'm just feeling like I'm starting my life, I'm fighting for my life. I knew the implications of what it was being a black boy in America, and now being a black sheep, so to speak, being diagnosed with what I thought was a punctured lung. I thought it was, just having pneumonia or something like that. Over my friend's house watching a football game, can't breathe by halftime. His mother takes me to the hospital. My mother meets me there. But if we rewind the time about 3 weeks to a month prior, I'm having chest pains and I'm having the signals and the signs, and I don't want to go to the doctor.
Well, you're 15.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, I'm running cross country, playing basketball as a boy becoming a man. Pain is weakness leaving the body. Don't cry. Crying is for girls. You got to be tough.
Yeah.
You can't be soft. And so my mother's like, something's going on with you. And I'm like, nah, I'm good.
Even prior to this hospitalization.
Oh, yeah, prior to it. She felt something was off.
Yeah.
And I was lethargic in class and kind of sleeping. And, And my favorite two classes at school were gym and lunch. You know, I love to chase the girls in gym, sit down, eat with them at lunch, and I'm just not myself. And long story short, his mother, like I said, his mother takes me to the hospital. My mother meets me there. They're doing a CT. The doctors are swirling around my hospital bed, nurses, everything, and they think it's a punctured lung. I'm like, nah, it's got to be something different. They do a CT scan of the chest, take me to surgery, and they see that there's a tumor growing around my heart, my trachea, my esophagus, and they removed it. It was so aggressive they could see it growing with the naked eye.
Oh, wow.
And
with the naked eye.
With the naked eye.
Now, someone with a science background, I know that's phenomenal.
Right.
To be able to see cells multiplying with the naked eye.
Yeah.
Wow.
And cells supposed to live and die off. If they don't, it's a tumor that forms.
Yeah, yeah.
And I felt great coming out of surgery. Doc says, you have what we call NHL. I'm like, I'm getting ready to be youngest over National Hockey League team. I know I'm in a red chair, but I don't like the Red Wings, So he says, no, you have non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. I'm like, my first language is Ebonics. I'm still trying to learn English. What is non-Hodgkin's lymphoma? He says, not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4. I'm filling my pockets of find $4. He says, stage 4 cancer.
Did you at 15 understand the implications of that?
All I knew was that it was a death sentence because my aunt had died of cancer. My best friend at the age of 7 died of cancer as well.
Okay.
So
you've had experience.
Yeah, I've had experience with it. And so automatically I'm like, am I gonna live or am I gonna die? And the identity crisis, losing your hair, your self-confidence, your self-esteem, can't be around your friends. And a lot of times your friends are thinking that it's leprosy, if I touch you, if I'm in the same environment as you, it's airborne, I'll catch it. I'm fighting the battle all by myself. And without a praying mama and belief in God and faith in God, I wouldn't be here right now.
Absolutely. Let me just back up a little bit because I know you went through it. But so you're in the hospital. Your friend mom takes you to the hospital. How soon after that do you get the diagnosis and go into surgery? Is it days? Is it
within a few days?
Within a few days. So you're in the hospital all this time.
I'm in the hospital all this time. And actually, you know what? The diagnosis came a few days, but after they did the CT, it was immediately they had to take me to surgery.
They rushed you into surgery.
Yeah. I'm totally in ICU.
Do you remember during that time, like your first thought?
I can remember it just like yesterday. I'm laying on the hospital gurney and I'm looking up. The lights are about as bright as this studio lights in here, if not even brighter. And I'm thinking I'm going into the light.
Yeah.
I'm like, it's over.
Yeah.
No more basketball, no more gym or lunch, none of that. And my life is just flashing before my eyes. Not much is flashing. I'm only 15. You know what I'm saying?
You said earlier, pain equals weakness. You're not supposed to cry. How were you handling that emotionally?
I was just trying to be tough as nails.
So not allowing yourself to really?
No, I didn't shed a tear. Really? Until a little bit time later. And now I'm getting chemo and radiation and I went to bed with a wave cap on, and you wake up and you got hair in the wave cap and hair on the white pillowcase. And I'm running into the bathroom and I'm looking at myself, and you thinking you're immortal. Yeah. And you're faced with your own mortality and you putting your hands through your hair and half of your hair is gone. And I'm crying like I'd never cried before. My mother rushes into the bathroom and just embraces me. Okay. And it was, one of those moments.
One of those. So that's when that was your first time you remember actually allowing yourself to feel the emotion.
That's
and even though the hair was the trigger, we know it was so much more.
Oh, so much more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you had been just suppressing all of that. When we're not done with your story, but I'd be remiss if I not touch on this because when we talk about, I know you do a lot of mentoring, you founded a mentoring program for young boys. And when we talk about just the ability and the permission for young men to be able to feel those emotions, so many, especially Black young men, have never been given that permission. Yeah. With your experience going through what you did go through, is that something you talk to your young men about? Is that something that you encourage them to just honor their emotions?
Totally something I've grown into. I've had to learn through the course of the trauma and finding triumph out of that. And it is the whole aspect of allowing yourself to be vulnerable. Oftentimes vulnerability and masculinity cannot coexist in the same space. Oftentimes that vulnerability is seen as femininity. And I'm realizing more than ever before, being a man is hard work, but it's heart work. It's hard work, yeah. And that hard work is being able to say, all right, I got to honor my humanity. I got to honor my emotions. It does not make me less of a man, as T.D. Jakes would say, your emotions.
Yeah.
And showing our boys and letting our boys know that, there is somebody that you can talk to about what it is that you're going through. And, they're not going to look down on you just because of what it is that you've been through. And I'm one of those. And I let them know, hey, I was that guy who was like, nah, I'm just tough as nails, this, that, and the other. But there comes a time of maturity in your masculinity to be able to embrace that level of vulnerability.
When did you feel you started to embrace that?
I felt I started embracing it within more so than ever before within like last year and a half.
So recent.
This
is
really,
all recent.
Definitely recently.
What's the catalyst to that?
I wrote a book called The Mask of Masculinity, How Men Can Reclaim Their Identity, Lead in Love of Vulnerability. And I really looked at just the whole aspect that as Dr. Sigmund Freud said, we are in adulthood or we have experience in childhood. And unless we heal from that, remedy that, scripture, when I was a child, speaks a child. When I became a man, I put away childish things. Things don't just leave by osmosis.
Yeah.
I have to do the hard work of taking off the mask, dealing with the trauma, dealing with the issues that are generational, the emotional incarceration, the psychological pain, addressing all of that and letting people know that now what became an embarrassment now can ultimately be a testimony.
Wow. Let me just say thank you, first of all, because the fact that you're even admitting and you're transparent enough to admit this is recent for you, because all these accolades, these have been years.
Oh yeah,
of
absolutely.
This.
Right.
And when we talk about transcending our trauma, when we're talking about really becoming the best us that we can become, it's not a destination, it's a journey. And so for you to share that, just within the last year and a half, I've started to embrace that, helps others, it normalizes it. It gives a sense of universality for those watching this podcast who feel like maybe they've missed the boat. Maybe it's too late for them to really, go after this life that they deserve and desire, because the time has passed, but it's never too late. Can you speak to that?
No, that's so good because, and I think this podcast is so powerful because you're able to unravel a lot of the truths, a lot of the scars that we've held hostage. And when you talk about transforming and transcending trauma, I had to forgive a father who never showed up for me in the hospital. So that's another level of trauma, another layer of trauma. Outside of, yes, the physical aspect of the chemo and the radiation and the spinal taps, but the psychological aspect of going through it.
What were you, as a young boy, because there's so many, young men that watch this that don't have that relationship with their father.
Yeah.
They're very critical times in their life, traumatic times in their life where that male figure was not there. How did you even come to a place of forgiveness?
Boy, it came from the place when I actually wrote my first book, Finding the Can in Cancer. I was literally 23 years old with a dollar and a dream in my name in the dorm room at Eastern Michigan University.
Oh, you moved.
Yeah, okay. Oh, wow, I didn't realize that. Okay.
I was there when we were the Huron.
Oh. I wouldn't believe it.
That's where the Eagles.
I wouldn't believe it. You can walk on the college campus now.
we were culturally sensitive when I was on there. We had to change the name around.
Right. Yeah, okay. I didn't realize it.
Yes.
I didn't realize that. Yeah, so I'm writing my book and, really at the behest of my mother, and I really didn't want to write it because I didn't want to tell anybody about what I had gone through with cancer. And she says, somebody needs your story. You need to write the book. And she's on my back. I'm like, I'm gonna write this just so you can get off my back.
Yeah.
And it became what I needed the most. What I didn't feel like doing became a blessing. And as I was writing, I was healing. As I was writing, I was forgiving a father who didn't show up for me one day in the hospital. And I had a lot of bitterness. And I came to the understanding that you can't really live until you forgive. And I had to forgive him before he ever gave me an apology, which came years later. But it freed me.
Yes.
It freed me to that whole aspect. And I'm
not his apology, but your forgiveness.
Yeah, my forgiveness, right. It was for me, not for him. So, and it was another level of healing outside just the physical aspect of healing from cancer. It was the emotional, and the psychological aspect.
Yes. And so 16 books. And you talk about how writing that first book was healing. So I can only imagine that explains why there's book after book after book.
Yeah, yeah.
Because you find the power of healing in telling your story. And even from an energetic level, for those of you watching this, because I'm big on journaling, I'm big on writing.
Yeah.
That was my first passion, believe it or not, just writing. But energetically, when we have anger or trauma embedded within us, the act of writing helps to allow that to move, to dislodge,
Wow.
from areas in our body. When you talk about having cancer, you've heard the saying, the issues are in the tissues. So even that act of unforgiveness can help breed even further disease. The emotional dis-ease creates physical disease. So you actually through, you don't want me to start rapping.
I can't not let those just go past. Bars, issues, and tissues. Yeah, for sure.
So I'm just occupational hazard as you're talking. I'm just analyzing, and I just know that even in the writing of your book and the telling of your story, the vocalizing of it, and the energy
absolutely.
that comes from that, it's all part of the healing journey. Which, when you talk about transcending trauma, and that's this podcast here, I really want people, as you share, to understand the freedom that comes from sharing our story, the freedom that comes from transparency and vulnerability. I want to get back on vulnerability, because you just said, last few years kind of really allowing yourself to go there. Another belief of mine, and this is just from what I've seen in 25 years of practice, is that, and I do a lot of couples counseling. Couples who get married, and they've been married 10 years, 15 years plus, but there still does not exist that vulnerability in one partner, or even both at some times. And it's so necessary if they're ever to achieve a relationship that is the fulfilling relationship I think all of us desire in partnership. That vulnerability has to be embraced.
Yeah, that's so good. That vulnerability speaks to intimacy. It's into me see. It's allowing somebody to see into you, and you're revealing yourself to somebody else as well. And for that to happen, I think we got to break down a lot of the different walls of what it is that we hold, and a lot of it is due to hurt. And until we heal, you always bleed on people who didn't cut you. And hurting people hurt people, heal people heal people. And I had to get to that understanding even within the last, few years. And the writing kept opening up different layers and different valves to my life. Me even reflecting on the fact that a guy walked up to me some years later after cancer and in a convenience store, inconvenience me in a convenience store, and says, "I thought you died." Yeah. And to have that.
How old were you at this time?
I was probably about 18, 19.
Oh my God. And said it almost in disappointment.
Right. And it reminded me of the people who I thought were praying for me were literally praying on me. People didn't think I was going to make it. A lot of people gave up on me. I was almost one of those people who gave up on myself.
Yeah.
And I had a heat rush go through my body, like the anger that you wouldn't believe. My fist was balled up. I don't know how I didn't get an assault charge. It's nothing but the grace of God. But I exercised emotional intelligence without even knowing what that was.
At that time.
Yeah, because I was getting ready to have a Will Smith, Chris Rock moment. I wasn't going to be Chris, and but it reminded me that I didn't die, I multiplied. Multiplied my gifts, multiplied my purpose, and all the things that I'm doing now. And using the setback as a setup for a greater comeback.
Yeah.
Wow.
So a few things come to mind when you share that story of being inconvenienced in a convenience store. I just shared with someone recently, someone posted how there was almost a disappointment with that latest story of the young lady that faked her kidnapping. But before we knew it was fake, and she was found, people almost came off like a disappointment that it wasn't a more tragic story. And what I shared with this person who was so angry with this is that, as a culture, we have, collectively and through our DNA, from all the hundreds of years of trauma, in a lot of ways normalized this expectation of just, the worst case, outcome. And as a result, we don't realize that there's actually a large segment of the population that feeds off of these tragic stories. And when they don't turn out tragic, it's almost like a letdown, because when you normalize life is supposed to be tragic, we're supposed to always have this tragic situation, you almost seek that out. And when you share this man saying that, I thought you I thought you died, I think about more recently Jamie Foxx coming out and sharing his story, and how there were so many people in the last few months where no one knew what was going on, posting stories about, he's blind, he's paralyzed, and he comes out and he, looks good through the grace of God, survived this, and it's almost like crickets.
Right. Yeah. It was disappointing to them that he did die.
Yeah.
That's to a certain degree, it's kind of sick, twisted, and sordid.
Yes.
It's masochistic to a certain degree, to where we always expect the worst and the negative because of the tragedy and the trauma of what we're so used to as well.
And this is what I want to help bring awareness to, is even the insidious ways that trauma can infiltrate our ability to live a fulfilling life by expecting these worst case outcomes and not realizing that you are tuned into that. Even people who watch the news 3 times a day,
right.
It's like you're feeding that trauma, hunger that you have in your body with that. Woo. So it's work to do, but I appreciate people like yourself that's out here, on the front lines, doing the work, sharing your story. Let's talk a little bit about triggers too. I know it was triggering at the inconvenience.
It was triggering for sure.
I'm going to start using that, the inconvenience store.
I like that. The inconvenience store. Wow.
But look, are there, when we talk about trauma, the trauma you experience, and I know this is just one trauma, because if you're human and you're living on this earth, we are going to encounter many traumas. You talked about losing a childhood friend at 7, an aunt who got to cancer. So you had an awareness of this. But have you noticed, I think about even my own, traumatic history, and how even, like you said, more recently in the last few years, that I've noticed things that are triggering to me that I didn't realize was triggering to me. Yeah. Do you have, and even an example, my father, I shared the story when we were on the panel together, massive stroke when I was 12, he was 36. I mean, wiped him out, no memory, dementia, couldn't walk, I'm a caregiver, changing diapers, doing all of that stuff. And, couldn't remember my name at times. Sometimes he'd had areas of clarity where he would remember who I was. Other times I was his sister. That's hard, for a 12-year-old who was a daddy's girl. But I've realized in recent years how, even though this was many, many years ago, there's still remnants of the triggering that goes on. My poor guy over there, I have to share with him. If he comes and said, "Where did I put my keys?" It's like, oh my God, what's going on? You understand? Why can't he remember where the keys are? And I've had to really check myself in these type of situations, because I understand that it's not, him, it's more me just really tapping back into that 12-year-old frightened child that doesn't know what's going on. Have you noticed anything with yourself triggering, even if it's health-wise? Like you said, if you got a cough, or you go ahead and just share any thoughts with that.
No, that's something that you put in the back of your mind that you don't really think about until you just mentioned it just now. I'm always aware of my health, very concerned about even what I consume. If I'll have a chest pain or something, I will think about that, because that takes me back to what it is that I dealt with, what I ignored. Am I being too, kind of invasive? Am I jumping the gun or jumping to a conclusion just because I'm feeling something? Or could it just be a muscle spasm? You know what I'm saying? So sometimes I've dealt with that throughout the course of my life post-cancer. Different intervals of time. By the grace of God, it hasn't been anything. At one time, I did have to go to the hospital because, I was having just some spasms, just in around my heart area, and it was in that same area.
Oh wow!
And so the doctor said, "Hey, just curtail a little bit of your workout, this, that, and the other, but you're okay." But I have been triggered.
Yes.
And
it's normal.
Yeah, it's normal.
It's normal. But what helps us is to recognize where that fear and anxiety at that time is coming from.
Right.
Yes. Yeah. To prevent us from going off the rails.
Absolutely.
With that. Yeah. I believe there are gifts to trauma. I believe that trauma, as devastating as it is, there are inherent gifts if we allow ourselves to connect with those gifts.
Wow.
What do you feel, if you give that a little thought, have been some of the gifts of what you experience as a 15-year-old?
That's a powerful example, analogy, and even point that you bring up. For me, I think what became most painful became purposeful in my life. I think really trauma pushed me into a place to where I've been able to find grace from grief, and really empower people to recognize their purpose and overcome obstacles.
Yes.
I was talking to a guy today. I was in the grocery store, and he was saying, he just walked up to me. He was working at the grocery store. I'm over in the banana section, minding my business. And he almost slipped on a banana peel to a certain degree. I said something to me. I said, hey, how's it going, bro? He said he's having a very, he used a few curse words, terrible day.
Yeah.
And I just encouraged him at that point and let him know, hey, after you finish working your job, go and work your dream. What you feel is so terrible right now, learn those little lessons that you're here at the job for the next level. And I kind of walked away saying to myself, if he really knew who he was talking to and what I had been through, he would understand that it's really no bad day. The only bad day is the one you don't get.
Wow. That's powerful.
And so just those little tidbits, those little lessons, I'm able to now take bits and pieces of the things that were broken in my life to now help other people find the pieces of their puzzle together.
Mentoring, even talk a little bit about your mentoring program with young men.
Yeah, the mentor program, Boys to Books, that all came out of the aspect of what I didn't have. Literacy, leadership, life skills enrichment. It's an honor. It's an opportunity for me to talk to my 13, 14, 15-year-old self. Because I was looking for such guidance and I didn't have it. And mentorship saved me. There were a lot of positive male role models who came into my life who helped me, whether it's a Mr. Herb Ivory, a former principal of mine, whether it's a Tom Wenham, who was a white guy who was the husband of my homebound teacher when I had cancer.
Wow.
Took me to my first baseball game, redirected the trajectory of what I thought about race and people of different persuasions, ethnicities. So, I live by that creed that, services weren't we pay for the space we occupy, and it's better to learn from the mistakes of a mentor than to experience your own mistakes. And so
say that one more time.
Yeah.
Because that is so powerful.
Yeah, it's better to learn from the mistakes of a mentor than to bump your head and experience your own mistakes. And so I try to pass that on to the next generation.
The fact that you said that it's an opportunity to talk to your 13, 14, 15-year-old mentorship.
Yeah.
Because that puts it in perspective for me. And I know others who've done mentorship, we don't think of it, but to a great deal, what we teach is what we most often either need to remind ourselves of, right? Or learn.
Yeah.
And so when you are mentoring these young boys, you see yourself in there.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, these young men there. That is, I love that. I'm going to have to just remember that when I'm speaking to individuals, because we do want people to avoid a lot of the pitfalls or the missteps that we took. That, again, the gift is that we're able to share that and help others in their journey.
Yeah, without a doubt.
Yeah.
And I think as well, when you talk about the destination, it's the journey more than the destination. For me, it is an opportunity to heal the little boy within. I think we're still always on that trajectory of what you weren't affirmed, how you were not loved, the things that were not necessarily embraced and were overlooked. And then one thing that separates my program from everybody else's mentorship program is that I have a very key, important aspect focusing on literacy.
Yes.
When you think about the literacy rate, when you think about literacy and incarceration being interconnected, and the disproportionate warehousing of Black male bodies in these yet to be United States of America, and the fact that we don't live in the United States of amnesia, 200 plus years ago, it was illegal for us to read. And so I said, I can't write books and not expose the value of literacy in books, especially to our young brothers. Let them know it's not an effeminate thing.
Yeah.
Real men read.
Real men
read. If you're going to lead, you got to be able to read.
Yeah. And that's huge in separating you from a lifetime of being below the poverty line and being able to, live hopefully be, beyond that poverty line.
Oh
there.
yeah. Absolutely.
It must be rain.
Whoa. You bringing the thunder.
We'll get back on track. Edit that out. So we have the Access Identity Conference coming up. I'm just honored. First of all, I'm one of the panelists on the conference there, so I'm looking forward to it. Talk a little bit about what this Access Identity Conference is, what the purpose is, the goals, and what people can expect.
Yeah. I'm fired up and excited that you're there, that you're gonna be one of the speakers. I am absolutely honored that you said yes. That meant a lot and means a lot. And I know people are just gonna be impacted and empowered by what you provide. And so with that whole aspect, the Access Identity Conference really is all about really empowering people to access who it is that they are internally through their purpose, through their value. And we do that in 3 ways, focusing on increasing your ideas, your impact, and your influence, really connecting kingdom and community, merging ministry in the marketplace. And we're doing that from the aspects of mental health and wellness, which is so needed and so important, is one of your specialties.
Yes.
Branding, business, personal identity. We do that as well through purpose, identity, relationships, financial literacy, which is so important. Looking at community issues, civil rights, yes, but we also need silver rights and economic development in the Black community. And so with that, the clarion call has gone out, and people have responded from registrants from 17 states and 7 countries.
Wow.
And
Cool. Is it
so cool.
virtual as well?
Virtual as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
amazing.
So we got the in-person and the virtual registration, and we're pretty much at capacity. Just a few more seats, and then we'll be totally sold out. But it's been just really a phenomenal opportunity, and I really wanted to give people just strategy, structure, and solutions on how to take their vision to another dimension. I'm tired of just having to go to another conference in Florida and Atlanta and LA. Why not have something big and powerful and profound from somebody who's grassroots?
I love it.
I'm a Detroiter. My hometown is Motown. What up, though? You know what I'm saying? So I want to put on for my city.
For the city. I'm so excited. August 5th.
August 5th, yeah.
August 5th at Focus Hole.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I know we'll put all the registration details on here.
Yeah.
But people can expect to leave empowered, but also with a plan.
Oh, without a doubt. Yeah. It's not just a lot of cheer, rah, 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 clapping and stuff like that. Beyond just shouting, we're going to shift you.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? So.
Empower, because it said again in the bio, he's an empowerment speaker. There's a lot of motivational speakers out here.
Nah.
And I once heard a saying that said, motivation is like perfume. It goes on strong, but by the time they leave in the concert, it'll fade it off.
That's right.
And it's like, okay, I need my next motivational speaker. But empowerment is going to empower you, provide you with the tools, the keys to really go out there and just affect change in your life.
Absolutely.
That's what people can, because when we talk about access identity, one of the hardest questions that even my clients and patients have, and people take it for granted, who are you? Three little words, 3 little words, and people are so quick to answer that with a label. I'm a mother, or what their career is, or what have you, but never really have afforded themselves the opportunity to get to the core and the essence of who they are. And that's what you can expect when you go to the Access Identity Conference, to really leave away not just empowered, but also with a firmer ideal and understanding of who you are, so you can match your skills, your aptitude with the things you want to go after in life.
Yeah, that's you're totally right on. You hit the nail on the head with the hammer right there. And that's what it's all about. The who you are, where you're going, why are you doing what you're doing, who do you want coming with you. And so many times, and you look at our world, especially post-pandemic, we're in an identity crisis. We're dealing with identity theft because of stinking thinking and all these other specific aspects. And during the pandemic, they told us to pivot, which is in many cases of basketball terminology. You just walking around on one leg, it's going to be hard.
Because when you pivot, okay, are you moving? Because you can pivot, but you still got to move. But if you just pivoting, you just going in circles.
That's right. And so being able to prosper post-pandemic is where it is and where we're at. And I'm grateful for speakers like you. We got Hill Harper, we got Tasha Page Lockhart, Dr. Sabrina Jackson, the list goes on and on. Kenneth Perry Mason, Kenneth Donaldson, Prophetess Kelly Cruz, Pastor Robert Bolden. people just need to go ahead and register right
Yes.
now. accessidentity.org is going to be the conference that's going to be talked
I'm
about.
so excited about it. I'm
Yeah.
so excited.
I was so afraid to do it, but
Why?
you know, fear of what
Say
won't
why,
work.
but I know why. I know why. Because look, I did my first international retreat this year. And
Oh wow, international is that?
the minute I said, like, what have I done? Like, what have I done? But it's
Yeah,
it sold out. It's
Oh, look at that! See,
It did. It did. Because you build it, they will come.
I just told somebody that.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, you got to feel the fear and do it.
You got to
do it anyway.
and do it anyway. And we're so happy you are doing it.
Oh, hey, you helping me?
So, Dr. Eddie Connor, thank you so very much. It's been
Appreciate you.
I can talk to you all day long, but this is not going to be in. We're going to do some other stuff.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Together, definitely. So I don't know if you have any closing words you'd like to give.
Listen, I truly appreciate you. You are a phenomenal thought leader, and I think one of the great geniuses in your craft, really helping people to really locate who they are, take off the mask of the trauma, and find transparency and truth and transformation to where it doesn't just happen internally, but is able to go and manifest to other people's lives. And so, thank you for the space and place. You's about to have me cry for a minute. But that's just a fan. That's just a fan. So you try to waken my tear ducts. But no, I truly appreciate you, and this is what it's all about, and I look forward to working with you even more.
Absolutely. And on that, guys, it's a wrap. Thank you so much. And we'll see you August 5th. Thanks for tuning in to the Transcend Your Trauma with Dr. Rose podcast. Click that subscribe button so you'll be notified when new episodes are available. See you soon.